In the summer of 1518, a woman stepped into a city street and began to dance. There was no music, no festival, no reason at all, and she did not stop, not for minutes, not for hours, but for days. Within a month, hundreds would join her, and some of them would dance until they died. This really happened. It's recorded in physicians' notes, in city council records, in the chronicles of the time. And yet, 500 years later, we still cannot say for certain what caused it. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through exactly what happened, and the three explanations scientists still argue about today. One involves a hallucinogenic poison, one involves the terrifying power of the human mind, and the last is the one the people of 1518 believed with all their hearts, and it might be the most disturbing of all. But to understand how an entire city danced itself to death, we have to start with the very first dancer. The records call her Frau Trophäa. One ordinary day in July, in the city of Strasbourg, she stepped outside her home and began to move, twisting, swaying, stepping in place. No music played, her expression was strange and far away. Her husband told her to stop. Then he begged her. She couldn't. She danced through the evening, collapsed in exhaustion, slept for a few hours, and then rose and danced again. One day became two. Two became nearly a week. Her feet were bruised and bleeding, and still her body would not be still. Now, decades later, one of history's most famous physicians would travel to Strasbourg, become obsessed with this case, and arrive at his own almost cruel explanation for why Trophäa started. We'll come back to him, because her private torment was about to become a public catastrophe. By the end of that first week, she was no longer dancing alone. Within a week, 34 people were dancing in the streets beside her. Within a month, the number had grown to around 400. But the most chilling part was never the number. It was their faces. Witnesses did not describe joy or celebration or trance-like bliss. They described blank, exhausted stares, twitching, jerking limbs, people who looked utterly trapped inside their own bodies, some reportedly crying out for help, pleading for it to stop, even as their legs kept moving beneath them. And in the summer heat, their bodies began to fail. Exhaustion, dehydration, heart attacks, strokes. So you would assume the city authorities did everything in their power to shut it down, to drag these people indoors and make it stop. Instead, they did the exact opposite. And it may be the single worst medical decision in the city's history. The city council was alarmed, and they did what reasonable people did in 1518. They called in physicians. The doctors examined the situation and ruled out astrology and supernatural causes. Their conclusion, this was a natural disease caused by what they called hot blood, an overheating of the body, and by the medical logic of the time, the cure for a fever you needed to sweat out was simple. The afflicted had to keep dancing, continuously, until the sickness burned itself away. So the city committed completely. They cleared out 2 guild halls to give the dancers space. They set up a wooden stage, and incredibly, they hired musicians and even paid healthy, able-bodied dancers to move alongside the sick, to keep the rhythm going day and night. It was a catastrophe. Instead of burning out, the dancing spread. More and more people were pulled in. And according to one chronicle, at the very peak of the outbreak, as many as 15 people were dying every single day. If this story is pulling you in, do me one quick favor, hit that subscribe button, because the next part is where it gets truly strange. Now back to Strasbourg. When the authorities finally understood that their cure was killing people, they reversed course completely. And what they tried next was stranger still. They banned music, they outlawed public dancing across the city. And then, guided not by medicine but by faith, they loaded the surviving dancers into wagons and carried them high into the hills to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus near the town of Saverne. There, the afflicted were led before a wooden carving of the saint. They were given small red shoes. Priests waved hands over them, sprinkled holy water, and made the sign of the cross. And then, remarkably, the accounts tell us, the dancing began to fade. By early September of 1518, it had almost entirely stopped, which leaves us with the real mystery at the heart of this story. If a religious ritual seemed to end it, what does that tell us about what started it in the first place? That question brings us to the 3 theories. The first is poison. Some scientists have argued the dancers were victims of ergot, a toxic mold that grows on damp rye and can contaminate bread. Ergot produces powerful alkaloids chemically related to LSD, capable of causing hallucinations, burning sensations, and violent convulsions. On the surface, it fits, but there's a serious flaw. Ergot poisoning constricts the blood vessels and chokes off circulation to the arms and legs. It tends to cause gangrene, not graceful, sustained dancing. It's very hard to imagine someone dancing for days on poisoned, dying feet. And it wouldn't explain why the symptom was specifically dancing. The second theory is the one most experts accept today: mass psychogenic illness. The historian John Waller has made this case in detail, and it rests on context. In 1518, Strasbourg was a city on its knees, battered by repeated famines, failed harvests, smallpox, syphilis, and the ever-present threat of plague. The population was starving, frightened, and desperate. And crucially, this region held a very specific, widespread belief that Saint Vitus had the power to curse people, to strike them with an uncontrollable, deadly compulsion to dance. Now combine those two things: extreme, prolonged psychological stress and a deeply held belief in this exact curse. Under those conditions, the human mind can slip into a kind of involuntary trance, a dissociative state where the body acts on its own. And once one terrified person started dancing, seeming to confirm that the dreaded curse was real, that fear could spread from mind to mind through pure suggestion, a psychological contagion. It even explains why a ritual at a St. Vitus shrine could end it. The same belief system that started the panic could, in reverse, finally release them from it. And the third theory, it's the one the people of 1518 believed themselves. To them, this was no disease and no delusion. It was St. Vitus, reaching down to punish them, divine wrath made flesh. And here's the unsettling thought: they may have been partly right. Not that a saint physically cursed them, but that their belief in that curse was the very thing that made it real. And what about that famous physician? Decades later, Paracelsus came to Strasbourg, studied the case, and rejected the idea of a curse entirely. He gave the phenomenon a name, chorea, and pointed the finger at Frau Trophea herself, claiming she'd started dancing simply to spite and humiliate her husband. A cynical theory, but it shows that even the greatest minds of the age were left grasping for an answer. Now you might assume 1518 was a bizarre one-off. It wasn't. It was the most famous and best documented case, but far from the first. Back in 1374, a wave of compulsive dancing swept along the Rhine, through Aachen, Cologne, and beyond, with thousands reportedly seized by frenzied movement and disturbing visions. In southern Italy for centuries, people suffered from tarantism, a belief that the bite of a spider forced them to dance for days, which entire towns tried to cure with frantic driving music. The same haunting pattern again and again, crushing stress, a powerful shared belief, and a contagion that spread person to person. And if you think all of this is safely locked away in the distant past, it isn't. Mass psychogenic illness still happens. In 1962, in what was then Tanganyika, a laughter epidemic broke out at a girls' boarding school. It started with a few students and spread uncontrollably. Fits of laughing and crying that lasted for hours, affecting around 1,000 people and forcing more than a dozen schools to close for months. Doctors found nothing physically wrong with any of them. Even now, in our modern world, outbreaks of unexplained fainting, twitching, and convulsions still ripple through schools and workplaces. The mind's power to turn fear and belief into something physical, something visible, something contagious, that has never gone away. So which was it? A poison in the bread? The terrifying machinery of the human mind? Or the curse they swore with their dying breath was real? I lean toward the mind, but the honest truth is, no one can prove it. So tell me what you believe in the comments, and if you made it this far, subscribe to Strangely Explained, because history is full of moments exactly like this one, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be understood. I'll see you in the next one.